So, you've got questions, I've got answers. I don't have any questions today. I might have some questions in the next video, but as of currently, I don't. But this is a problem. See, I'm a bit of a recluse. I'm pretty introverted, and with all this extra time that I usually don't have operating the business, I've started whoring myself out on social media a little more, being a little bit more active than I might usually, and as a byproduct, people are like, yo, Ben, I've got questions. And questions are relating to all sorts of topics, whether it's training, lifestyle, mindset, reading. People who know I'm a bookie, they want to know what I'm reading right now, especially because I've got extra time to read. They want to know how I remain so heavily caffeinated all the time, yet still have such an early bedtime, just things like that. So some of these questions that I answer will hopefully be informative and progressive, and some of them will just be absolutely ridiculous, and that's okay. I'm cool with both of those. Nothing is off limits. I'll answer basically everything. I can't think of anything I wouldn't answer, to be completely honest, so keep the questions rolling. The first question I can think of, which is actually a two-part question, is a simple one, and that's why I'm going to start with it, because it's easy for me to remember. I don't have a script, so I don't remember half the things I want to talk about. It's just pretty verbose with my self-expression. So, a friend of mine wanted to know what I currently weigh, and what my goal is in terms of body weight. So those of you who've been following me for a little bit, which is not too many of you because I have a pretty small social media following, but this is not my leanest ever, which is probably a good thing because I'm a little bit fluffier than normal right now, but I'm currently weighing in naked in the morning, the weight that you don't see unless I take a selfie, not a selfie of me, but a selfie of the scale. You might see that weight first thing in the morning. Sometimes I'll take a quick accountability post that I can reference later. Is between 204 and 206, which I would just like to make a point is the heaviest that I have ever been while maintaining abdominal definition to this degree. Interesting point of observation. I have been as heavy as 210. I did that last year. That was pretty impressive. I've never been at that body weight before and still feeling okay, but I did not have abdominals. I had an abdominal, one singular ab. That is what I had, one ab. Right about now, I'm at the point where by the second meal of the day, the abs are getting a little shy, but that's okay because my intent is actually, referencing question number 2, is to get to 215 pounds. I've never been 215 before, and what I have found to be quite effective is the approach I take is I employ some aggressive intermittent fasting and extended fasting protocols to get down to my leanest at heavier weights. So for example, I used to sit around 182 all the time, and I would just increase the frequency with which I ate until I got up to about 195, and then I cut down to about 185. And I do these with a very aggressive extended fast, so I'm primarily burning body fat. I get it over and done with, it's quick and dirty. I don't have to stress about it for 3 or 4 months of the year, feeling miserable and weak and generally disagreeable, although the generally disagreeable part is always a thing. But the other disappointing parts of cutting are a non-factor. I get it done in 6-7 days, maybe 2 weeks if I draw it out a little longer, and then I focus on building back up again, which helps because lifting heavier weights, I don't want to feel weak and lethargic. I want to feel fresh, I want to feel full, I want to have energy, and I want to feel like I can crush heavy weights and not feel like I want to take a nap or grumpy all the time. So once I hit 215, I'll do a pretty aggressive cut. I'm assuming, based on my current pattern, physique-wise, that I'll likely cut down to about 197, 198, because my last cut from 210, I went down to about 192.3, and the time before that was about 188, 89. So I'm just going with the data and assuming that I'll take a pretty aggressive cut, get down to about 198, 199, and then we'll work our way back up over 4 to 5 months and get up to that 220 mark while prioritizing these strength progressions under the bar. Question number 2 was, do I own a gym? And the answer to that is yes, I do happen to own a gym. I have owned a gym for, we're coming up on three full years now. I think it's been 3 full, you know, it's interesting because a few years back at a seminar, I was fortunate to have lunch with Dave Tate, who is one of the coolest, most down-to-earth guys I've ever met in my life in the strength and conditioning world. And he literally said to me, and he probably doesn't even remember this, but sitting at the table, he said, once you open your gym, because I had not yet opened it, He's like, when you start running a business, you are no longer going to know what day it is. Now, it took about 2 years. I usually know what day it is now because I do reference my calendar. If it wasn't for the calendar, I probably wouldn't know what day it is. But there's a good example. I think I'm coming up on 3 years of gym ownership. I'm trying to do the math in my head. 3 years since I opened the business, and I think 2.5 years of being in operation, because there's, you know, paperwork period, lease period, build out period, all of that stuff where technically the business existed, but it was not a gym filled with equipment. So yeah, that's the timeline. That makes sense. And then the final question is, what do I squat, bench, and deadlift? So that's a pretty easy one. We're starting with all easy ones today. This is great. Send me some more complex questions. Now, to be fair, I do know that there are some pretty good questions sitting in my DMs right now on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, etc. So I will be covering those questions. They are a little more in depth. I just wanted to do a light one today just because, like I said, I'm in a bit of a pinch in terms of time, and I don't want to think too hard right about now. But squat, bench, and deadlift. Now, you have to remember, I am not a competitive lifter yet. That's subject to change, but I can tell you what my gym lifts are, and they're pretty respectable because anyone who's followed me for any period of time knows that I'm very diligent with my form, and at the very least, it's a full range of motion. I squat ass to grass, I deadlift with no belt, I do use straps though, and when I bench press, I touch my chest, and then I lock the bar out with a full extension in my arm. So they're respectable lifts. They might not be 100% competition qualifying, but they're respectable gym lifts. So my top end bench is a 345 single, touch and go. There was no pause whatsoever, so that probably would not have been cleared on the platform, but I can pause 315 to 325 depending on the day. My squat, top end ever, now with cringy form, that went viral, 475 pounds. That's beltless, by the way, no knee wraps, nothing. With good form, 440. Deadlift with good form, 517. Those are my top end singles on the traditional variations of those lifts. As many of you know, I play around with all sorts of variations of exercises, have an absolute blast doing that, but those are your traditional bench press, squat, and deadlift variations. So yeah, just a quick little Saturday Q&A session. Wanted to start answering some of these questions that are coming in. As I mentioned, some of them are very interesting and they get a lot more into my lifestyle, my approach to business and training and what may be. So I'm really looking forward to touching on those. Some of those questions will actually be individual videos because you can see I can talk for hours. So I probably can't summarize some of those questions into one video unless you plan to watch me for 14 minutes, and who the heck has time to do that right about now? Probably all of you, but in the future that might not be the case. So we'll try and keep them as succinct as my verbosity allows for. So that's Saturday, that's a wrap. Keep the questions coming. We'll catch you soon.